There are very few people in the world, and more so in India, who inspire with decency, with a strong set of values, who believe in what they say, who are torchbearers of not just a legacy, but who are deeply passionate about India. Even fewer are from the world of business. But today, I have a guest who is not just a colossus, but actually an inspiration to people across ages. Age doesn't define him, his work does. And he continues this tirelessly as someone who always believes in what he does and does what he believes in. Welcome, Mr. Tata.
Thank you, Sahil. It's nice to be here.
Sir, Ratan Tata Trust will be completing almost 125 years of its existence, the first of the trusts. When you look back at the work that the Tata Trusts have done, what do you feel, and what ignites this feeling of compassion and giving back?
Well, I have a great sense of pride that over these 125 years, Sir Ratan Tata left his legacy to the philanthropic causes, followed by his brother, when Sir Dorab Tata, when he passed away, did exactly the same. And over the years, Tatas have been structured by the holding company or the proprietor's ownership being held by two charitable trusts, and over the years, an increase in the number of charity trusts that were created to work on the disparities that one found in the country, at that time a colonial country, and to work for the common good of the common man. This was a different thing. It set up cancer hospitals, schools, and institutions of that nature. It had also dealt heavily in terms of individual hardships. So through the years, the trusts have dealt with individual hardships. They have given scholarships to students. We've had past presidents of India who have been scholars of those Tata scholarships. We have created institutions which stand today, like the Indian Institute of Science, which the trust did not actually set up. Jamsetji Tata set that up.
But there's an interesting anecdote there, right? Between Swami Vivekananda, the conversation that Jamsetji Tata had with Swami Vivekananda aboard a ship.
I don't specifically know about that conversation, but they met each other and were inspired by each other. I know that. So over the years, the trusts have focused on either creating institutions that serve the common good, like cancer hospitals, etc., and institutions of learning, some international and some domestic, and causes which were said to be for the common good. What is refreshing is that the holding company for the whole Tata Group, which Jamsetji Tata set up, that 66%, or at that time more, 85% of its income and dividend outflow became income to the trusts for the common good of the Indian citizen and foreign causes.
But as you rightly said, at that time there was no need, there was no mandate. Today we have CSR, much abused as it is a phrase. But what do you think went through the minds of the founders when they set this up, and especially transferring their value in Tata Sons to the trusts?
Well, I think it was a different view of ownership. Mr. J.R.D. Tata often used to refer to Tatas as being the trustees of the people. The Tata family could have become tremendously wealthy by having distributorships, partnerships, etc. in the businesses. But most of the businesses, whether it was steel, whether it was power, or institutions, were set up as institutions for the country. So Jamshedji Tata could just as well have dedicated Tata Steel to the nation or dedicated Tata Power to the nation. They belong to the shareholders and to the people. Personal ownership and personal wealth happened when it happened, but was never the criteria for these companies to be established. So it was natural that he did leave his ownership to his two sons, and then his two sons, who had no children, left them in charitable trusts as beneficiaries of the companies that they held. So it was a refreshing change that gave way to ownership in an industry not being for the beneficial interest of A or B or C, but for the better good of humanity.
So if you look at the trusts today, they span a wide range of sectors. And there's a certain stress that you've laid on technology being a great intervention in some of the applications. Where do you believe the transformation of the trusts actually began, and why?
Well, you know, if you look at India through the years, the needs of India have changed. We had famines, food famines in the British times.
Yeah.
We don't have famines any longer. We had a majority of the people living in the rural areas. Today there's a mass migration to the urban areas, giving finally an important issue of creating an important issue of urban poverty and hardships that didn't exist before. The creation of jobs in industrial organizations. Today, automation and differences in terms of value chains, etc., make human jobs less important than machine jobs in many companies. So the needs of the nation have changed. Food shortages continue to exist in pockets. Water shortage is something that never existed in the past, but is an issue today. A much larger population and creating jobs and knowledge. These are all issues that are issues of the changing times. For the trust to continue to do what they did at the turn of the century would be to be sitting in the twilight thinking that the issues of the country were the same. And to me, that would have been a disappointment. So I think the trusts have gone through and are going through a transformation that, to use short term, is making the trusts relevant today. If we had not done that, they would have become irrelevant and creator of edifices that stood out as evidence of what the trust did, but did not make a contribution to the country.